perspective from the Iranian opposition in exile. We're joined here by Rضاپهلوی, the Iranian crown prince in exile. He was the eldest son of the last Shah of Iran, whose reign ended with the 1979 Iranian revolution. He's been a prominent voice among the Iranian opposition. Welcome to BBC News.
Good evening.
You have posted on social media that the fate of Israelis and Iranians are intertwined. Israel is now deciding on what response it should make to Iran's attack over the weekend. What would you say would be the best response?
Look, I cannot speculate or decide for the Israeli government what to do or not do. What I can tell you, however, is the reason we are here at this point facing this kind of crisis is a direct result of decades-long flawed policy by the Western world of expecting behavior change by this regime, and at the same time one of appeasement that has actually emboldened the regime. When the regime feels that there's no threat against them or pressure against them, they can sell their oil, which is not going to be spent on the Iranian people, but is going to rather be spent on maintaining and supporting their proxies, whether it's the Houthis or Hezbollah or Hamas. We should not be surprised, therefore, that we have had this kind of conflict occurring. And the solution fundamentally to the problem will be a change of regime in Iran, which is what the Iranian people want. In the meantime, the regime is showing signs of weakness and not strength. The regime that is strong does not start attacking its own women yet again. It does not continue attacking foreign countries. These are all signs of despair by the regime, facing an unsurmountable economic situation at home, and therefore it's trying to deflect attention for the world, and at the same time sort of addressing its core base that they're doing something. The rest is just pure rhetoric as far as I'm concerned.
The EU is looking at new sanctions against Iran today. You have called for sanctions in the past, but that has put you at odds with other leading members of the opposition, including the imprisoned Nobel Prize laureate Narges Mohammadi, who says sanctions don't work. They simply put more pain on millions of Iranians.
Well, I totally disagree with that assessment. And the reason you need to apply pressure is because when you know that the regime is going to benefit, not the people, then the only way to curtail this regime is make it less capable of having access to funding, funds that they will use to repress their own citizenry at home, and as I said earlier, continue to support their proxies abroad. The Iranian people right now are faced with insurmountable economic challenges. Our currency has been devalued at 10,000 times what it was at the time of the revolution. Official figures indicate 45% inflation. The Iranian regime in the first quarter of this year has had 30% more oil sales, going to China, of course, which is benefiting from this cheap oil. But again, the Iranian people are starving. I think the reason we need to have a reset of foreign policy vis-a-vis Iran is because this time we have to go beyond a status quo approach. That has failed. Appeasement has totally failed.
You made clear. You have said before you had very important discussions here in Israel when you visited last year. You also have had discussions in Europe for a new policy. You're advocating for regime change. But all the evidence is that is not an approach that is favored and what wants to be pursued by the international community, and most of all, by the United States.
Well, I think world leaders, and I hope that in the meetings of foreign ministers with the G7, they're going to use that opportunity to really discuss fundamentally a reset of their policies. I do believe that the most important ingredient the world needs to recognize is that the people of Iran want change. The people of Iran are fed up with the current situation. The Iranian people are sending a clear message to the world. What this regime does, it's not us, it's the regime. We don't want war. We want peace. We want liberty. We want freedom. Something that this regime is an obstacle between us and the free world. Therefore, if the free world, if the democratic world wants to put an end to conflict and instead arrive at a situation where we can have regional peace between the neighbors, the only way to do that is to get rid of this regime. Therefore, the policy has to be adjusted as having one increasing pressure on the regime by means of further sanctions. Perhaps it's important to indicate that the IRGC is one key element here that is repressing people at home and continuing a campaign of terror abroad, and at the same time have a policy of maximum support for the people of Iran. If you put these ingredients into place, then we can see something that will create the fundamental change that is needed and the ultimate solution to the current problem. Otherwise, we'll be just limited to considering retaliation and escalation, but nothing beyond that.
Rضاپهلوی, I'm afraid we don't have more time, but thank you very much for joining us, the exiled Crown Prince of Iran and a prominent voice in the Iranian opposition in exile. Thank you for joining us.